Hello, America. This is my first video, and I want to introduce myself. I'm an American first, a conservative second, maybe a little libertarian third, and I'm worried about where this country's headed. There's fighting in the streets, hatred everywhere, people are acting openly against the principles of democracy for the sake of their own political goals. The last few years, and especially the last few months, the conversations and the headlines I'm seeing are unproductive and filled with nothing but people pushing for their own team regardless of facts or logic, and nobody's actually trying to find solutions. Can't promise I've got all the answers, but I'm making this channel because I don't think it's too late. I love this country, and loving something means you don't give up on it, even when it gets hard, even when it takes more work than you thought it would. It's easy to get mad at people who you disagree with, who you think are a threat, who might even legitimately truly hate you. But our democracy was built on people who were different, coming together and seeing past their differences in order to form a more perfect union. And I still believe that, even if it feels harder to do nowadays, even if it takes more work because of all this stuff going on. I've lived in a lot of places, probably why some folks say I've got a weird accent, and I've got liberal friends that are open-minded enough to have great conversations where we both come out understanding and respecting the other side. It's possible, I've seen it. And with this channel, I want to share that with everyone who hasn't been able to find that. To logically explain what I think the valid points are from each side as neutrally and rationally as possible to cut through the media bias that's polarizing us. I want to give people a perspective beyond just what the media is going to tell you about the other side. We don't have to agree on everything, but I believe that at the end of the day, we're one country. We didn't storm the beaches of Normandy as Republicans or Democrats, we fought as Americans. United we stand, one for many, e pluribus unum. So, let's talk about what the problem is. There's two basic ones: how we get our information about other people, and how we process the information that's out there in the world. For the first one, how do we get information about the other side? There's about 340 million Americans, and generally, we fall either on the left side, the right side, maybe closer to the middle for most of us. And the first way we learn about other people's beliefs is through direct experience. You talk to the checkout clerk, have dinner with your family, hang out with your friends, and you get an idea of what their values and beliefs are. Unfortunately, the downside is it's a limited view. People with similar beliefs tend to group together, geographically, in the same social circles, and that makes sense. You choose to be around people who have common interests and values. But it creates this pretty narrow range of the people you're typically exposed to, or at least are able to have deeper, substantial conversations with. So for most people, let's say you lean left, you're probably going to be around a relatively narrow range of left-leaning people pretty similar to you, and missing out on those deeper conversations with a huge section of the more right-leaning side of the population that you probably don't know personally a whole lot about. Opposite's true if you lean right. So how else do we learn about these folks? Well, for most people, it's indirectly through politicians or the media or the internet. And no matter which side you're on, none of these are reliable options. I'm a capitalist, I believe in incentives, and all these groups are incentivized to give you a distorted view of the other side. For politicians, you generally go into politics for a few basic reasons: ego, some form of power, whether that's wealth or favors, or you actually want to do some good for the country. I'm a conservative, we're always skeptical of government folk, so I don't believe there's a whole lot of people in the last category, but either way, they want votes. Whenever they interact with the public, that's their primary incentive for doing so, to keep or gain votes. And the easiest way to do that is to point at another group that you don't know much about and say you can't trust them, those guys are a real threat, and I'm the only one that can protect you from that. So just from the structure of how our officials are elected, they're incentivized to give you a distorted view of the other side. You can say some of them resist those incentives, but those are the basic incentives and the most efficient method to capture them. The second indirect way is the media. They're businesses. Their main goal isn't to inform, their goal is to get views or clicks to turn into advertising dollars for their shareholders. If you have any doubt of that, look at how fast they take action when advertisers start pulling out. And again, the most efficient way to get and retain views is to rile people up. Make them feel threatened by a group they don't have much direct exposure to, and make them feel like all the other sources are liars and they're the only ones that'll tell you the truth. So same thing, they're incentivized to distort your view of other groups. The third is through internet sources, and let's break this one out because it's a bit of a jumble. At the core, you have content creators. They could be movie studios, news media, could be your aunt posting photos of her dog. When we're talking politics, these creators tend to be liberal or conservative, just like the general population. And they create content that reflects those biases at best, or more typically actively pushes their agenda. And all this content is put out there and accessed on different platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Google Search, or YouTube, or wherever. And you can't just go out and start clicking on it randomly. The companies that control these platforms control which content you see out of that whole big universe of information by recommending certain ones to put in your feed or search results using their special recommendation algorithms. And that's where the problem comes in. Let's say you're a liberal, You go out there and either look for information that aligns with your values or it randomly gets put in front of you and you click on it. Well, the recommender algorithms watch you do that and go, okay, they like this kind of thing. Let me make sure I put more of this kind of stuff in front of them. So it puts more liberal content in front of you. And your options are mostly liberal now, so you click more liberal stuff. And pretty soon that's about all you get. Try it sometime. If you're a liberal, watch just 1 or 2 Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro shows and tell me in the comments what happens to the list of videos that YouTube recommends for you. It's a feedback loop. The more you see and read content from one side of the spectrum, the more likely you are to start leaning that way. Then the more content from that side of the spectrum you'll get, and it's just you and the algorithm going back and forth brainwashing yourself. Okay, we took the long scenic route, but that's the problem with how we get information about other groups. The other big problem is that we're not good at thinking critically about the information presented to us, and that's understandable. There's a ton of information out there, and almost all of the pundits and so-called analysts present it in a way that discourages critical thinking. And we see it all the time on the news, so we think it's normal or a good way to think about the issues. Let's take a look at what we typically see from political pundits in the media. Someone will go on TV with an opinion like, Donald Trump won the debate. And they'll give you a stream of talking points that support that opinion, like, Biden came off as weak, Biden resorted to insults against Trump, and Trump dominated the conversation. And that's really it, a conclusion and supporting talking points. So what are some of the problems with that? Well, first, let's look at what these talking points really are. They're really a bunch of different types of things. A lot of them are key facts or alleged facts about the issue. Some are pre-made conclusions that need more supporting facts themselves. Others are value judgments or opinions, and others are a mixture, but they're all framed as facts and mixed together. Second, the language used to describe these facts is often spun. A fact is, Joe Biden told Donald Trump to shut up during the debates. Conservatives might say, Joe Biden resorted to hurling nasty insults at Donald Trump, versus liberals who might say, Joe Biden stood up to Donald Trump's bullying during the debates. So how you inject value judgments and biased language into how you describe an otherwise objective fact doesn't help people form an objective opinion. But the biggest issue is all of the presented facts are pre-selected to support the conclusion. Out of the whole universe of facts out there, you chose only these to present. How did you decide these were the most important ones? Was there anything else you found that might have contradicted this conclusion? Are these facts excluding important context? How can we be sure these are truly relevant to the issue or the conclusion you made? So these kinds of segments or articles aren't analyses, they're marketing for a conclusion somebody's already come to. So what should we be doing instead? Well, we'll talk about one way to solve that in the next part. Gotta end the first video on a cliffhanger. Let me know what you think in the comments. Likes, subscribes, comments, that's all feedback for me. It's how I know whether this is actually helpful or not, and if you think I should keep on making these videos. And I'll see you next time.